Good evening and welcome into the Philadelphia Soul official pregame show. It's live right here on Bob Long Sports. My name is Bob Long, and tonight the Tampa Bay Storm, the second team in the Arena Football League at a 9-3 clip, come into town to face the Soul for the third time. Now, the first two games, they were competitive. The first game of the season for the Soul, then they played the Tampa Bay Storm, was only a 4-point victory down at Amalie Arena in Tampa Bay. The second time the Storm ventured up north and were defeated by 21 points in a game that was certainly closer than that final score would indicate. Now the final game of the regular season. The entire rest of the schedule has been completed after a Friday night victory by the Washington Valor, the lowest rated team in the Arena Football League. They defeated Baltimore Brigade, so now the stage is set for the two best teams in the league to play one another in the regular season finale. We'll have the commissioner of the Arena Football League, Scott Butera, in just a few minutes. We had an interview with him earlier this week, and he gives his thoughts on everything surrounding the Arena Football League, from the two top teams that you see here tonight to the progress of the league to even expansion plans and where the AFL will go from here. But quickly to break down this game before we send it to our interview with the commissioner, the key for the Philadelphia Soul is how to contain Joe Hills, and it's a question that the rest of the league has not figured out. In the last game, he had 10 catches, had a couple of touchdowns, and earned a touchdown catch in his 80th consecutive game. He's the most physically dominating and physically intimidating wide receiver that this league has to offer, and he's been nothing but strong for this Tampa Bay Storm team. And you know, we're going to see this Storm team with Randy Hipbeard and some of the guys on that team see if they can continue the hot streak that they've had in the last few weeks and carry that momentum into the playoffs. The number one seed is not on the line. Philadelphia Soul, by virtue of their two-game advantage over the Storm, had clinched that coming into this game, but bragging rights are on the line. Two of the legacy teams in the Arena Football League, and they're ready to go at each other tonight. Now, we mentioned the Storm and how well they've been playing recently. The last time out, they were able to defeat the Cleveland Gladiators, who they will play in the first round of the playoffs next week. They defeated them 57-27, getting back at the Gladiators for a tough win that Cleveland was able to garner at home just 2 games prior against this same Tampa Bay Storm team. But a 13-point win for the Tampa Bay Storm the weekend after against Baltimore, and then that 30-point victory, their largest of the season, says that this Storm team is on the right footing and ready for the playoffs. On the Philadelphia Soul side, it's been the Dan Rodabaugh show as usual, but he has had some help. The wide receiver core of Ryan McDaniel, Darius Money Reynolds, and SK, Sean Kalinamoku, and last year's Arena Bowl MVP have been phenomenal on the offense. And then, of course, Michael Benson, the big running back who came from Arizona last year, has been so good for this team. His 21 touchdowns on the year would put him 5th amongst all wide receivers, something very, very unique in this league. And this team has used him as a phenomenal asset out of the backfield. On the defensive side of the ball, this Philadelphia Soul team is led by Dwayne Hollis. Dwayne Hollis and James Romaine in the defensive secondary have both combined for 2 of the highest interception totals in the league. And the departure of Tracy Belton, while it hurts, has given a guy like Romaine a lot of room to grow and a lot of room to improve. So these two teams go at one another today. The Storm only with 3 losses, and the Soul only with the 1. We look forward to see how these teams will duke it out, and it's in preparation for the playoffs, which begin next week, and the Soul will take on the Baltimore Brigade here on Saturday at 4 p.m. But a long way to go before that. We still have a big game here today that we bring you here on BOS. Now we're going to take a look at our interview with the commissioner. His name is Scott Butera, and let's see what Scott had to say as we interviewed him earlier this week. All right, and now we have the pleasure of interviewing the commissioner of the Arena Football League. His name is Scott Butera. He's on the line with us now, and Scott, a great year so far for the league. Obviously, we're in the last week of the regular season, meaning playoffs is next, and I just want to get your sense on how the first the first portion of the year is gone. From your eyes at the commissioner's office.
Sure. And Bob, thanks for having me on today. It's great to be talking to the folks in Philadelphia, especially in light of their season this year so far. So I'm sure there are a lot of happy people out there. But thanks for having me on. This season has been incredibly rewarding so far for the AFL. As you probably know, in the beginning of the year, we made a strategic decision that we were going to do a number of things. We were going to consolidate around our, real solid ownership groups, of which Philadelphia is certainly one. We were going to spend a lot of time improving the quality of our game, the way our game is run. We were going to spend a lot on, trying to increase attendance, make for better fan experiences, and really make going to an arena football game a real event. And we've just been incredibly successful so far on all of those fronts. In addition to having teams this year which are sort of having, their all best seasons in terms of viewership and attendance, and I think Philadelphia is averaging just under 2,000 additional attendees per game over last year. We've also set up our own OTT network, AFL Now, which allowed us to extend our viewership to people who didn't have access to our arenas. We've got 2 live applications. We've been running podcasts. And we also signed a deal with Twitter, which allowed us to stream games over their network, which have been incredibly well received. And the numbers we've seen there have been just outstanding. So, we knew there was a hell of a fan base out there for arena football. And, what we're doing to kind of reach out to that group and say, hey, we've got a product that, really makes sense. It's a lot of fun. It's catering to millennials. We're doing a lot with technology and with media and the way we're viewing games. And you're going to see some real neat stuff in the Arena Bowl that's never been done before. People are really responding to that, and we are getting that, next generation millennial crowd to say, hey, this is a cool sport. It's fun. It's exciting. It's high scoring. It's indoors. So, so far so good. And we've had a lot of, very competitive play. Obviously, Philadelphia, as you probably know, has had a great season and a great record. But gosh, how many games were they in where, the game was won on the last play, or within the last couple of plays, or had some kind of dramatic comeback. So you never know what's going to happen in this league. But, so far so good for us, and also for obviously the Philadelphia Soul.
Yeah, without a doubt. My colleague Rob Stott and I have talked at length on our pregame shows about how so many of these games have been close, and you hit the nail on the head there, Scott. Now, what do you think has been the key driver of that? Now, there was a draft that happened before the season started that dispersed some of the players from some of the teams that departed. And, do you see a bit of the consolidation being a strengthener of what we've seen here from this league?
There's no doubt. I mean, obviously with less teams, we have, more demand for talent, so we're able to get, each team sort of stacked, with talent. And we knew that would be one of the results of going to fewer teams, is that, you wouldn't have any kind of holes in your system, with 20 some odd players per team. All of them are real solid football players. They're well coached. We have great coaching across the board, and there's just a lot of parity. So I think between, just not diluting ourselves in terms of our talent or our coaching skills, I think that's really led to, sort of these like last minute, wins and losses.
And I think what's also very important is, you take a look at some of the guys and how that depth has certainly become more of an impact. But, of course, the guys still at the top. And the one guy here in Philadelphia, Dan Raudeball, who has probably vaulted himself back into an AFL MVP conversation. What would you have to say about what you've seen from him in the second half of the season?
Oh, my goodness, there's no doubt about it. I mean, he's been spot on. He's one of the smartest players in the league. He's physical. He sees the field well. I mean, heck, you're talking about a guy that's won 15 straight home games. I think he's racked up, over 115 some odd touchdowns, and probably holds every other stat in the book. That's just a guy who's got his game on, in a big way. Obviously, his experience, shows he knows exactly where to go. There's no indecision in him whatsoever. And, in addition to being, one of the best football players in the league, he's a hell of a human being. I mean, you're talking about a real class act, and Dan Raudeball. So he's as blue chip a player you get. And, I just wish the best for him, and I'm sure he's going to really light it up as we head into these playoffs.
There's a guy for this Soul team, and again, we're talking to Scott Butera, the AFL Commissioner, here on the Pregame Show. Scott, there's a guy in the backfield joining Dan Raudabaugh who's a new addition to the Soul this year. Michael Benson, who came from Arizona last year, he has racked up almost double the amount of carries of anybody else in the league, and his touchdown total would put him 5th in terms of the wide receiver core. What type of impact have you seen Michael have on this Philadelphia Soul team this year?
Enormous, figuratively and literally. Michael Benson, I've followed him ever since I've come into the league, and he's just been a force to be reckoned with. He's a smart player. He has great ball control. Doesn't fumble the ball. Gets what he needs to get. You know, if you need 2 yards, he gets you 3. If you need 3, he gets you 4. Never really seems to make a mistake. You know, that's just the kind of guy you want, you know, heading into the playoffs and the championship. I mean, you put the ball in his hands, you know it's going forward, and you know it's going to be safe. And I think Michael Benson has been a tremendous, tremendous addition to that offense. And I think that's opened up some avenues for Dan Raudabaugh, you know, and others to really, you know, show off their talents as he kind of, you know, clogs up a lot of space in the middle of the field there.
Now, there's 2 games this weekend upcoming, Scott, and they have, you know, relative degrees of importance. Now, this one, Philadelphia and Tampa Bay, of course, the 1 and the 2 seed are already set. The Soul as the number 1 overall seed in the playoffs, Tampa as number 2. But there's no doubt that these 2 teams think and in some ways hope that they're going to see each other again in the Arena Bowl.
Yeah.
So, you know, I wonder when you have your eyes on this game, what you're going to be looking for in terms of these teams trying to scout one another out and prepare what could be a matchup in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think you're going to see, you know, some of that. You'll probably see some gamesmanship, and, you know, I'm sure the coaches will be over that. But make no mistake about it, the guys who are on that field want to win that game. You know, they want to set the tone going into the playoffs that, you know, you got to knock us off, not vice versa. So even though it might be a game that doesn't look as meaningful on paper, I guarantee you it means a lot in the hearts and souls of those players, and they want to go out there and absolutely establish that they're the alpha dog. Make no mistake about that.
And we're going to see in the other game, which will actually have been final by the time this show goes live on Saturday, the Baltimore against Washington game. Now, Cleveland's already in the door. They've ended their season, but Baltimore with a win by virtue of their head-to-head, a 2-1 advantage over Cleveland, could vault into that 3 spot. Now, what are you seeing in that game, if we will, the battle of the Ted Leonsis franchises?
Yeah, I think, you know, same thing. Obviously, for Washington, they're playing for pride, but you always want to win that last game. It really sets the tone going into the next season. And Baltimore's fighting for that 3 seed, you know, and that's a big deal, you know. So you never know what can happen in arena football. And, you know, obviously if you're the 4 seed, you can't get a home game. If you're the 3 seed, if something crazy happens, and I know you don't want to hear that, but if something crazy happens, you can get a home game. And, you know, that could be very important. So, obviously, that 3 seed is something that means a lot to both Cleveland and Baltimore. But don't count Washington out. You know, they're rivals with Baltimore. They want to show that this is all kind of a fluke, and that they're going to be something, you know, to be reckoned with in the following season. So I think both contests are going to have a lot of spunk to them.
I want to get back just quickly to Ted Leonsis. I mentioned the fact that those are his 2 franchises. And at the onset of our interview here, Scott, you mentioned how important it was to rally around those core group of owners. If you could describe in a few words what Ted's impact has been on the league in just his first season.
Enormous. You know, Ted is a class act throughout. He runs a tremendous organization. You know, they have a lot going on at Monumental Sports with the Wizards and the Capitals and the Mystics, and obviously the Brigade and the Valor, and the fact that they do them all, you know, really well. You know, every game is run exceptionally. They leave no stone unturned. They have a great marketing effort, and they've really set a tremendous example for other groups as they come in as to what you want to be a successful franchise in arena football. And believe me, the record of the Valor and even the Brigade, for that matter, don't reflect the quality of that organization. And in fairness, the Valor were on the flip side of the Philadelphia Soul, probably lost 5 games on the last play of the game. And if not for, you know, losing a QB early, which you know how devastating that is in our league, and, you know, some late game management, could have been a different story for them. But Ted is the real, pride of the league in terms of the ownership group, and I can't say enough positive things about him. He's one of the best people that I've ever had the chance to work with, both on a professional level, certainly, and also on a personal level. He's just a tremendous individual. I will say he's probably the best person I've ever met in Washington, D.C., no doubt about it.
That's some high praise there. This again is Scott Butera. He's the AFL Commissioner, and we have the pleasure of having him on the pregame show here for the Philadelphia Soul. Now, Scott, if you may, I'm going to get into the weeds with you a little bit here before this Tampa Bay game against the Soul, and there was a big move that came across the wires this week. The Tampa Bay Storm picking up Alan Chapman, who's a seasoned vet and an Arena Bowl champion. Now, I think that has an opportunity to really bolster that depth in the defensive backfield. And, in terms of his first game with the Storm, I think he'll take maybe a little bit of time to get used to it. But, of course, he's a seasoned veteran and really more of a move earmarked towards the playoffs. I wanted to get your thoughts on that pickup.
Yeah, it won't take him a long time to get going. That's
No,
the guy
it won't.
really knows what he's doing. And, look, you always want to have folks that have been there, done that, going into the playoffs and into the Arena Bowl. It can be kind of overwhelming for people who've never been through it. You've got sort of the awards, you've got the festivities, you've got block fairs, you've got family that, wants tickets and all those other things. There's a lot of distractions that take place, or can be distractions that take place, in a championship game. And having somebody that's been through that and knows how to block that out of their mind and just focus on, getting it done on the field is extremely important. And then having somebody that can communicate that message and work with those younger players so they understand that is also critical. So I think that was a very savvy pickup, very savvy.
Yeah, of course, you have superstars throughout this league. Joe Hill's a big superstar. He actually leads the league in receptions by about 30. His impact on the respective teams he's been a part of over the last few years has been, absolutely enormous. I think you used that word before. Joe's impact to impact a game, a playoff game, I think is going to be huge, and his impact on the league I see as a net positive in a big way.
Yeah, no doubt. Look, we got a lot of talent across the board, though. I mean, and sometimes in these playoff games, the folks you think they're going to show up are different than the ones that do because, every coach is going to try and shut down that key player on the other side. So it's who are the support players that can step up sometimes. But there's no doubt in my mind Joe Hill is going to do some damage because he just always does. I mean, he's just a guy that you can't stop. He's physical. He's long. He's got great hands. And I'm sure he's going to be in the end zone more than once during these playoffs.
This is Scott Butera, the Arena Football League Commissioner. And, Scott, as we move towards the playoffs here and then look beyond to next year, you guys have done a great job this year. It seems like a seamless effort, and I see the online and the digital capabilities already paying big-time dividends. What are some of the big plans that you might be at liberty to describe for what may take place in the offseason and what Arena football fans can look forward to next year?
Well, the biggest thing for us is going to be expansion, getting into new cities, getting our message out in the areas that we may have been in the past and didn't have the right ownership groups. There's a big effort on and trying to get into new cities. I can't really disclose any of those now because those conversations are confidential, but that would be the biggest thing. And then I think we're going to work on refining our game, just increasing our product. We're going to do a lot more, I think, next year with gaming, sports betting, and fantasy gaming. I think we'll make some announcements very soon on that front. And just continuing to enhance customer experience in game, with more media, more vantage points, more social media activities, more ability to interact with the team. We've done a lot with, kind of party zones in our arenas. I think we want to make those bigger and better. So it's just going to be all about how do we make, we got off to a good start. Now we just got to keep it going, keep improving the product, and just make it real fun so that, going to an arena football game is just a must-do for anybody who happens to be in that market.
Yeah, Scott, it has been a pleasure for us to be associated with the league, and I see the strides every week, and so I congratulate you on a great job so far, and I know there's a lot of people in Philadelphia looking forward not only to this game, but to August 12th, and if they may be so lucky, August 26th. So you guys put a great product on the field, and we appreciate the time here today.
Well, I appreciate your time. Absolutely love the Philadelphia franchise. We love that city. It's just a tremendous sports town. People incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly spirited. It's always a pleasure to go to Philly because, people are just into it, as much as anybody can be. I mean, just look at the parade you guys had last year. And if all goes right, maybe you'll have another one this year. So as you know, I gotta love all my teams equally, but I want to wish you guys the best of luck. And if you do happen to win the trophy, there's no one finer or more deserving. So good luck to all the great folks out there, and I look forward to seeing you on the field.
All right, Scott Butera, the AFL Commissioner, on the line with us. Thanks again for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Good luck. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
And many thanks to the Commissioner of the Arena Football League, Scott Butera, for joining us. And it was a great interview. We hit a lot of things over the course of that interview and really enjoyed his time and appreciate the time that he was able to give to us. Now behind us, you see, they're getting ready. The lights are dimmed. They're about to introduce the Philadelphia Soul, and they'll come onto the field for the final time this regular season to take on the number 2 seed, who will start their playoff chase next week as well, the Tampa Bay Storm. Now, we mentioned some of the keys to this game, Joe Hills being the most electrifying and the most physically imposing wide receiver that this league has to offer, and he's going to be a big matchup for James Romaine or Dwayne Hollis. I think that role may fall to James Romaine, a little bit more sizable, a little bit more physical than the ball-hawking Dwayne Hollis. But again, they may be switching off all night long. And when it comes to Dan Raudeball, it's can he get the time to throw the ball over the middle, because those wide receivers are so electrifying. And then what role does Michael Benson play? We mentioned it in the interview with the commissioner there, Scott Butera, that this guy has double the carries of any other back or even quarterback that runs out of the backfield, thinking Arvell Nelson and quarterbacks of that ilk. He's run the ball more than twice than those guys even have. So he's become a key cog in this offense. He was that way in Arizona, and he's been that way here in Philadelphia as well. Now we'll take a break and then come back and talk more about the starting lineups, as well as what this team needs to do to prepare itself for a playoff run. That'll begin next week here against the Baltimore Brigade at 4 o'clock p.m. But we'll be right back. This is the Philadelphia Soul official pregame show. It's live on BLS. Bob Long from Bob Long Sports here, and I want to urge all our listeners to visit our friends at Dunphy Ford in the Northeast. Dunphy Ford has all the latest Ford models, trucks, SUVs, and sedans. They also have a wide selection of used cars, trucks, and SUVs as well. Owned by a LaSalle graduate and a proud sponsor of Explorers basketball, Dunphy Ford should be your first stop to buy or lease a new car. Visit them at 7700 Frankfort Avenue in the Northeast or at dunphyford.com. Elmark Signs and Graphics, your choice for custom signs and design, has been servicing the Philadelphia area for over 30 years. From illuminated signs to vehicle wraps, Elmark Signs is your choice for all your custom signs needs. Elmark delivers high-quality signs with a courteous, helpful, and experienced staff. Visit them at elmarksigns.com or give them a call at 610-692-0525. Again, that's elmarksigns.com, 610-692-0525. Go check out their website for some great examples of signs that Elmark has created, and be sure to tell them that Bob Long Sports sent you. elmarksigns.com, your choice for custom signs and design.
Hi, this is Rob Stott with Bob Long Sports. BLS is the official host of the pregame show for the Philadelphia Soul. Be sure to tune in before every home game for featured interviews with head coach Clint Dolzell and quarterback Dan Radebaugh, as well as player profiles. We even get the opportunity to speak with AFL Commissioner Scott Butera.
Commissioner of the Arena Football League, Scott Butera on the line.
You do a tremendous job. Of all the, local broadcast teams, by far Philadelphia is the gold standard in our league. I wish they all could be like that, because you really understand our game, you promote it well.
So be sure to tune in 30 minutes before every home game and check at Bob Long Sports on Twitter for programming updates.
This is Bob Long here, and you certainly know me from BLS, doing LaSalle College High School broadcasts, our weekly radio shows, and everything in between. However, during the 9 to 5, I am a commercial banker in the greater Philadelphia area. If your business is looking for financing or any other type of assistance, you can reach me at 215-328 215-328-2578. That's 215-328-2578. I've had experience in the energy industry, healthcare, public finance, as well as in manufacturing and leasing. Bob Long, a commercial banker in the greater Philadelphia market, helping your businesses grow. Welcome back once again. This is the Philadelphia Soul official pregame show. It's live right here on BLS, and we are preparing for the Philadelphia Soul against the Tampa Bay Storm in the season finale. Last night in the battle of the Ted Leonsis franchises, the Baltimore Brigade fell to the Washington Valor in a game that pushed the Brigade back to the 4th seed in the AFL playoffs. So, this is a game that's important for the Philadelphia Soul, not for seeding purposes. They know that they will be facing the Baltimore Brigade, but more so the opportunity to play the best competition and get themselves ready. So we take a look at the starting lineup right now. The Soul is led by Dan Rodabaugh, the quarterback for the Philadelphia Soul, and he's vaulted himself right back into an MVP conversation. 80 touchdowns on the year to only 10 interceptions, and he's been a guy that's been a big part of, we'll say, not the rebound because they've only lost the one game, but more so the fact that they've been more dominating in their victories and now prepare themselves for the playoffs. We're now pausing for the national anthem here at the Wells Fargo Center, home of the Philadelphia Soul, and we will take that break with you upon the point in which they begin their singing. The Soul, with just one loss on the season, and Tampa Bay with 3 losses, will go at one another. And if not Dan Rodabaugh, maybe on the other side, Randy Hipbeard would be the best candidate for the MVP title. But we'll now turn our attention to the national anthem. And a great rendition of the national anthem from one of the members of the Soulmates. And as we get ready for this game, the return of Lamarck Brown last week for the Tampa Bay Storm, or 2 weeks ago, as last week was a bye, becomes that third option for quarterback Randy Hipbeard behind Kendrick Ings, who's the number 2, and of course Joe Hills, who is number 1. On the Soul side, they've had their starters for the majority of the year, really the whole year. Their wide receiver core has been the 3-headed monster of Ryan McDaniel, Sean Kalinamoku, and then Darius Money Reynolds. Dwayne Hollis, we mentioned on the defensive end, 7 interceptions on the year. That leads the Arena Football League. James Romaine, he has 5. The last key point, and we're going to go back to our interview that we had with AFL Commissioner Scott Butera, the signing of Alan Chapman, who is a longtime veteran in the defensive secondaries of many Arena Football League teams. He comes to Tampa Bay, a late signing here in the regular season. He's won a title with Arizona and been with the Arizona Rattlers team, for many years. and now comes in, as we said, a seasoned vet and an opportunity to really make a difference. I'm very interested to see what Chapman is able to do in this game, because he'll come into a brand new system. But, you know, the opportunity to play with some of these guys that he's played with before around the league. And I think this is going to be a big, big key as we get to playoff time, which, again, as we said, begins next week. So what role can Alan Chapman have? Does he step right into the starting rotation, or is he more of a revolving door platoon type guy who will come on to spell some of the other defensive backs for Tampa? Again, I think this is a huge question that is going to be a key as we get into the playoff push. The Storm, at 3 losses on the season, will return to Amalie Arena in Tampa Bay, and they'll take on the Cleveland Gladiators, who, by virtue of sitting at home, the Gladiators, and watching the loss that came at the hands of the Washington Valor by the Baltimore Brigade, so the Brigade losing their final game of the regular season. If they had won that, they would have vaulted themselves into the 3 seed and the opportunity to play the 2 seed Tampa Bay. But instead, they will play Philadelphia here at home, where they've already been beaten twice by this Soul team. Now, not for nothing, that Baltimore Brigade team is the only team that beat the Philadelphia Soul this year, and that game was down in Baltimore. Soul have played more than their fair share of close games, but the only one that they actually fell was that game against the Baltimore Brigade. And that'll be next week here at the Wells Fargo Center, and a 4 p.m. kick. Very excited for that, and also very excited to have had the opportunity to share this stage with you, the fans, all year long. I'm Bob Long. Not with me today is Rob Stott, but he's been a part of this the whole time. And, of course, Michael Bariski and Eric Nash, who have made appearances throughout the year. Really want to thank AFL Commissioner Scott Butera once again for coming on the show with us. He did this a lot last year and finally got to come on with us here this week. We're also going to put that interview back on replay for next week's show when they play the Baltimore Brigade, and so excited to bring you that preview next week as well. But on the last game of the regular season, it's only fitting that the Philadelphia Soul, the top-rated team in the league, and the Tampa Bay Storm, the 2nd overall seed, share the stage. Enjoy the game, everybody, and we'll see you next week for the playoffs. This is Bob Long signing off from the Wells Fargo Center.